Lately, there's been a lot of discussion regarding one of the more polarizing aspects of the Arc Raiders progression system, and that's the skill tree. Some folks think survival is the strongest attribute, others feel conditioning, and some feel mobility to be the weakest of the three. But regardless on where you stand with any of the attributes, there is one endgame perk that has stood out above all the rest. Welcome everybody to Lance's Mixtape, where we talk all things Arc Raiders, news, updates, and the like. Embark has done something that has pissed off a great amount of the vocal minority on the internet, to say the least. If you've been in any online spaces talking about the game, whether it be Twitch streams or the subreddit or the Discord, there's a non-zero chance you've seen people talking about the security breach endgame perk and the survival tree. Now, the reason I say vocal minority is because this game has hit a concurrent 700,000 players across all platforms. And I'm pretty sure not every single one of those players is taking a look at, the individual perks and what they do and what applications they give to your raider in the skill tree. These are really only things that people who want to optimize their build and or game plan care about. But so the question is, why does Embark nerfing this perk have the community riled up? What exactly has caused this uproar? Because of course, you still have key rooms. You still have those rooms locked behind power rods. If you, put a power rod in, of course, you get some pretty good loot out of there. So why is it the security breach that people are riled up about? Well, it's pretty simple. If you've been seeing the loot pools that people are getting out of these security breach lockers, you understand exactly for two reasons why: one, all the folks who got to abuse this early on are not mad at the nerf, and two, why everyone who did not get to do so is angry about this nerf. So for those of you who are unaware, the survival attribute does have a lot of really good skills, such as mid-raid crafting, that allows you to make stuff like bandages, shields, hatch keys, all mid-raid. And in other instances, there's stuff like broad shoulders, which allow you to carry more weight without being over encumbered. But at the end of this branch, you'll see that there's two skills here, and the one we're going to be talking about, of course, is the security breach. Now, concept of security breach seems cool. You have to invest a lot of time and skill points to acquire the perk, and in return, you get some better than average loot as opposed to regular breach containers and typically key rooms. But in practice, if you've seen the stuff that people are getting out of these security breach lockers, you'd think they either have triple the hours of play time than they actually do, or that they have the most insane streamer luck known to mankind. And that's not even the case. It's really just that's how good the loot pool is for people that have the security breach perk. And obviously for the health of the game, that's not something that's optimal for players to just have access to. But then again, it is an end game perk. I don't think most folks even had access to this perk before they decided to nerf it. And with that being said, I think the main issue that people have with this nerf is not the fact that they decided it was too strong. I think it's how they went about it. Was it too early for them to go ahead and decide to cut down on the loot pool for security breach? Or should it have been a bit more spread out? Or maybe they just shouldn't have acted on it this quickly at all? We are talking about an incredibly receptive team in Embark Studios here. If you guys are familiar with the team behind the finals, they are everywhere. They're looking at the Discord, they're looking at the subreddit, the YouTube for feedback on what people are saying about the game. And this often creates discord within the player base because some people feel that their class is not as strong as the other, and that if they complain enough, Embark will see these complaints and act on those, which has happened multiple times. Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't have been monitoring this perk themselves if a lot of people weren't speaking about it online, although I'm sure that was a pretty significant factor that played into their decision to nerf it this early. And I haven't unlocked the security breach perk myself, so I can't really give my take on what I think of the nerf. But what I can say is that relative to the purple key rooms, which are just not good at all, there's a weird situation that you create with having both mechanics in the game. I think it's a really cool aspect of the gameplay to introduce something where if you have an item that unlocks forbidden places on the map, you get some really good loot, and otherwise a perk that balances it out, where if you really want to put the time into unlocking that, then you can have a similar effect by just roaming around the map. But I think the issue with having both is that there's inevitably going to be a problem no matter what you do. Either they're both really good, so there's no reason for them to exist alongside each other, or one is moderately / significantly worse than the other, so they have to level them out in turn, making them too similar, or debuffing one that didn't even need to be looked at in the first place. And the solution, I'm glad I'm not on the dev team, but I'll offer up a possible fix to kind of address this dynamic. I think if they randomize the spawns of the security lockers on the map, whether it still be interiors or on the side of buildings, on the exterior of buildings, etc., but in places that make sense for a security locker to be, then that would at least bring a bit of chase, a bit of challenge to the perk that gives you some really good loot in return for finding the security breach lockers, as opposed to knowing where these fixed spots on the map are, so you know exactly where you need to go and how to set up to get the really good stuff. And like I said, maybe they didn't even have to nerf this perk at all, but when you look at the other endgame perks in the 2 other branches, then you begin to see why this is one of the more popular perks in the game. Like Fly Swatter, what exactly is this perk doing? You can destroy air-based arc with a melee attack. We do understand that turrets are usually spawning like 30-40 feet above the player, right? And the smaller air-based arc like hornets and wasps are flying all around the player to keep them guessing, changing their position, making sure that you stay on your toes. So of course you have to keep your eye on those back propellers to really track them down. So how the hell is, I mean, is anybody killing air-based arc with melees? What the fuck? And then this other one in conditioning, which seems really good. Like when you're critically hurt, your health regenerates until a certain limit, And it's actually kind of funny that this perk is in conditioning because it reads like it would be a survival perk, but having something like this would 100% give something people to play for aside from the security breach if it was tuned in a way that made you feel like you wanted to acquire that perk. If it was geared toward emergency, like the further away you get from an enemy raider or from arc while critically hurt, then you regenerate health quicker. And I'm fine with it being up to a certain limit as long as it's not less than 1/3 of the total health value. Then I think this would be a pretty interesting perk. It would reward you for movement, your ability to navigate during tense moments, and knowing how to get out of these situations, like depending on which map you are and how well you know the map. If you end up critically injured, then you know how far away you need to get from these threats to be in safety. I think a perk like that would just be a game changer. Maybe like if you get 50 meters away or further when in critical condition, then you start to regen health quicker. But using melees against air-based arc and slow health regen, I just don't feel like these are things people really care to grind for. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. We are going to be covering more of the latest patch in this event that we've got going on with the release of the Stella Montes map. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe with the bell, and follow my Twitch in the description below. We are going to be streaming some Arc Raiders and whatnot, of course. And I will see you guys next time.